So now that we have tinnitus, and potentially it could be, caused majority of the time by hearing loss, but not all the time, right? As we said, there's other conditions or causes to hearing loss. But regardless, we now have hearing loss, okay? So what happens at that moment? Why does people begin to,
seek out help for this?
And what happens psychologically? Please explain. Yeah.
So typically, it then starts to affect people's quality of life. Affects their sleep habits, affects their relationships between their family and friends.
So at that moment, when these exactly what you're talking about, Lacey, is that when we do have these affected kind of daily activities that are affected, we at some point in time build what we call a negative emotion towards it. Okay?
Yeah.
Because it bothers you when you sleep. When you don't sleep, you feel cranky, right? When you don't hear well, when you're tired, and so all these things cause people to start to begin to think negatively towards the tinnitus. Okay, and this is the key right here. Okay, I'm going to show you guys a slide here where what you're seeing is a negative feedback loop. Okay, so what happens is initially when you have a source of tinnitus and you start to detect it, and you may just be able to ignore that because it's just, and every time I have it, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I get that. Okay, go away.
Let's
And then,
move on to something else.
Yeah, within like half a minute, I don't hear it anymore. And I'm like, oh, see, I'm good again.
Yeah.
So I don't have this.
I cured myself.
But here's the funny thing. Very often I hear patients and they describe exactly the same experience that they go through. Okay. And it's like, people who describe out-of-body experiences. They all kind of describe the same thing, or like near-death experience where they envision the tunnel when they're in surgery or whatever, or they're about to die on the deathbed, and they come back out and they kind of all tell the same story, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, this is something like that. We always hear the same story. It's really funny. But the story goes like this, right? They say, like initially I hear it and it goes away, so I'm happy, and initially, so I know it. I don't do anything about it. I don't even think twice about it.
No.
But then what happens is that as I get it more and more, all of a sudden it becomes constant and it doesn't disappear after that half a minute. Then they begin to pick up on it.
Yeah, people begin to naturally panic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we all do that, right? And now we start to think, oh no, something is changing. Maybe something's growing in my head. Maybe something is, some cause is getting progressively worse.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm gonna have a huge trauma of some kind, and so what happens is now, in thinking about this, I begin to have this heightened sense of detection, and that is the first beginning part of the negative circle. At some point in time, we begin to build that negativeness towards that, feelings, not only to the actual detection of the tinnitus, but we also emotionally we're affected by lack of sleep, by lack of concentration, all that stuff. So now we're emotionally affected, and here's the key: when you're emotionally affected, you kick in what we call the limbic system. Okay, and the limbic system is part of our brain that controls our emotion, and when that happens, then it leads to another part where the annoyance starts to build, and the annoyance comes from a system called the autonomic nervous system, and typically we describe that as the sympathetic pathway, which is the fight or flight response, right? So now we're actually seeking out a remedy or a solution. So now as we hear it more, we're looking to evaluate. And I think that at that stage is when we say, okay, is it I hear stories, people go on WebMD and they come in and go, I think I have a tumor. I think I have an acoustic neuroma, or I think I got a growth in my middle ear, or I have wax in my ear. So it doesn't have to be drastic, but they say, hey, can you check my tinnitus because I must have wax plugged in my ear.
Yeah.
And here's the worst part, right? When I look in the ear and go, no, your ears is perfectly clean. Then they're like, okay, now what?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Now is the other thing. Now is the other thing that they didn't tell me. Yeah, now is the growth. Or there's no growth because we tested the middle ear and everything is working good. They go, okay, now is my hearing. And if we test the hearing is normal, then they now think that. So as they spiral into thinking the worst case scenarios, they begin to detect it more. And this is where the negative feedback cycle happens, right? It just goes viciously back and forth, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And this turns subconscious, right?
Absolutely. So now this is all a conditioned reflex or subconscious reaction, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like consciously we hear it, then we go, okay, let's think about it, let's be mad about it, let's be upset about it. It's not like that. It's everything that we just talked about is in a subconscious loop, okay? I think to really understand this portion where we're talking about the tinnitus and how one person or the next person reacts very differently and how we spiral as well. I think there's a good example that we can talk about. So we'll play this out for you guys so that you guys can kind of imagine this, okay?
The motel example.
The motel example. Okay. So this I think we should just, if you can close your eyes and just kind of give yourself some imagery here. So let me paint this picture for you, okay? So imagine, we're driving across Canada, and I'm trying to make up time from Calgary to Toronto and just driving as much as I can during the day, but we kind of overshot or missed the timing and miscalculated. So now it's like almost midnight and we're tired, and I can either try to drive through the night or we can just keep going. But all of a sudden we see a motel, right? So now we drive out to motel. We're like, okay, maybe we just sleep for a few hours and we'll continue on the next day, right? So all of us have done something like that, right? Road trip, okay? So I get into the hotel, and so I see the clerk here, and I go, oh my goodness, I'm so tired. Do you guys have a room?
Absolutely, yeah. We only have one room left.
Only one room?
Only one room.
Okay, I'll take it.
It's under construction right now, so it has a bed, we have a bathroom. The only thing is the lights aren't working properly, and the refrigerator's not.
Is it cheaper
working.
though?
It's cheaper, yeah. I'll give you a discount.
Thank you.
And the radiator's broken. It's hissing.
The HVAC system, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It still works, right?
It still works.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's just hot outside, like any air conditioning, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's good. So now imagine this, right? We check into this hotel room, and yes, it is truly under construction. But you know what? We're so tired, it doesn't matter. So halfway through the night, as the clerk kind of described, as Lacey described, the conditioning comes on, or the HVAC system comes on, and I get this in the air, right? And we don't think much of it because it's okay. We know what it is, and it's supposed to do that, so we understand. So we probably fall right back to bed, and without making any without any issues, and sleep right back to bed.
Yeah.
But in the second example, so let's reimage this second example. So I'm at the clerk, and I'm saying, hey, do you have a room, Lacey?
Yeah. So same thing. We only have one room available. It's under construction. The lights aren't working very well. The refrigerator's broken, but everything else seems to be working fine. You got a bed, you got a bathroom.
I'll take it.
Okay, perfect. I'll give you a discount.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Most important discount.
Yeah. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to add. There's a circus that was in town last weekend.
Okay.
They did lose 2 of their cobras, the snakes. So
like these things?
Those things. Yeah. So just keep an eye out. Yeah. They've only found one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. But if I see it, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
no
sure.
worries.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So imagine we checking out into the hotel room again, and same situation. We go to bed quickly, and halfway through the night we hear, same thing, right? But now, because the thought that would go through my mind is that may be not the HVAC system problem.
No.
That may be the cobra, the one they didn't find in my room. So I would literally jump out of bed right there and maybe turn on the lights and look for it, right?
Yeah.
So my reaction is very, very different, and the emotion that's going through my mind is very different.
Yeah.
And imagine we don't even find anything, but every now and then we hear this hissing, and it seems to even propagate from side to side.
Yeah, ignite his fear.
Yeah. Like I don't think I'm gonna get any sleep.
No.
Once I get back on the road that night, right? So I want money back, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that from that example you guys understand that imagine your tinnitus is the hissing, right? And you just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So the fear of the unknown, the fear of the undiagnosed condition is the concept here. Okay, so now, so we talked about different causes. We talked about why the feedback loop happens and the heightened sense of awareness, and then the buildup of annoyance, and ultimately the continuation or the continuation of generation of the heightened sense of the awareness of the tinnitus. Okay, so is there treatment? Is there like I mean we oftentimes hear people come in and they seem to have tried a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Amazingly, when we ask them sometimes, have you had a hearing test? And they're like, no. But I've been to,
I've tried acupuncture, I've tried the supplement I found over the counter.
Yeah. I went on the internet and ordered 3 products. I tried vitamin A and then vitamin B and then vitamin C, and I tried the supplement here, and I've quit alcohol, I quit smoking, I quit all these things that they say could be related, but I still have it, right? Or it really doesn't change it. So let's talk about some of these, because I think it's important for us to understand what all the different treatments are. Okay, so
I would say the first common one is hearing aids. We're treating the hearing loss.
And sometimes that works, as we say, and sometimes that doesn't. There's lots of examples in our clinic where patients have worn hearing aids over years, and they actually tell us that their tinnitus is no longer heard, or when they're wearing the hearing device, for sure they're not heard. And we'll talk about that, and why is that? That's a very important function of hearing aids. But then the other one is acupuncture. So I hear acupuncture a lot, right? And I've done acupuncture myself, and I know that when I ask the acupuncturist that what exactly are you doing? Like, why are you sticking needles in me? And this looks pretty long and deep. Like, what exactly? And they described to me that I have this yin and yang qi, the Kung Fu Panda, thing, and
gotta unblock the flow.
And if we unblock the flow, and you have good qi, David, then your body is circulating well. And I oftentimes hear people actually gain benefits from acupuncture.
It might actually help some people.
Absolutely. Sometimes just during the session, or sometimes the effect is remedial afterwards a little bit, but oftentimes it does go back to the same thing the next day, right?
And each case is different. I actually had a patient who noticed a long-term benefit from acupuncture on just 1 year. So it was probably related to some sort of problem in her neck area as well.
And so with and then also of course medications we talked about, and all these things. I think so. I guess when we do hear these things and we hear some effectiveness of it, I think it's very easy to understand. Anything that you do to de-stress, right? Remember the whole stress relationship. Anything that you do to de-stress, anything that you can lower your stress, and if you have incidents where you have episodes where often hear times there's family trauma that happened, or somebody passed away, or some acute event in your life that had caused you to be psychologically, emotionally stressed, right? Like you could lose your job, and it's just stress, and we could have potentially a pandemic in the world, potentially called COVID-19, and that could be very, I'm stressed.
That's stressful.
Everybody's stressed, of course. The whole country is talking about mental health, right? And the effects of that and how that has affected all of us. So but the key issue is this, and is that patients would tell us, but that episode was past. I'm no longer in that state. I'm no longer in that state of stressfulness, or I have overcome the chronic stress. My back is no longer hurting, or I've done my acupuncture anyway. All these things that overcome the stress, but still my tinnitus is now the same, or it's the same. And that, I think you just have to keep remembering that it is the vicious circle. So once that kicks in, subconsciously, we do not have the ability innately to be able to get out of that circle ourselves. And we can't talk ourselves out of it. We condition ourselves out of it. And we'll talk a little bit about conditioning and conditioned reflexes, okay? So, but also there's a bunch of therapies that are very similar, and we call these sound therapies, or we call these masking type
sounds.
things, and
Yeah.
oftentimes hearing clinics would turn on a masking sound or white noise in the hearing device. And again, if there's no science behind it and there's no protocols necessary behind it, and of course the scientific proof behind it, oftentimes these only offer a portion of the solution.
Like it comes back.
Yeah, or it can make it worse, because now you were hearing that one buzzing sound, and now I give you another buzzing sound, and now you hear two buzzing sounds, and before you know it, you just amplify the stress.
Yeah.
That you resulted from the one buzzing sound, now you have two, right? So, or you get a ringing sound, now you get a buzzing sound, right? Or you get a white noise, and then it really doesn't treat people. And there's no, you can try turning it up and down, but it doesn't really do anything. All you do now is just hear another sound that you're more annoyed to.
Is it almost like putting a Band-Aid on it temporarily?
Absolutely.
In a sense?
Yeah. And then, so the key thing, the concept there is that we don't want to treat the symptom. Okay, so never try to, in medical sciences, we don't try to treat symptoms, right? So if you go to the doctor and say, hey, I have a pain, the first thing is not to give you a painkiller. The first thing is try to figure out if we can find the cause to the pain and get rid of that pain, right? So don't just try to take the Tylenol or Advil right away, but to do that. Okay, I guess when people look up tinnitus treatment, I think what they find a lot of times on the internet is there's several different treatments that are available, and these have claims that they do treat tinnitus. And even if you talk to hearing care professionals, they'll tell you, oh yeah, I have heard of that psychologists can do a counseling therapy, if you will, right? Or there's or hearing care professionals can use the sound or noise things. So I want to kind of maybe talk about the efficacy of each of these, and I think to kind of tell you that what are the different ones that the major ones that are available, right?
On the screen now is the graph of comparing different treatment options of tinnitus, which uses Tinnitus Handicap Inventory to measure the success. On the y-axis, it shows the scores of the Tinnitus Handicap Inventory. The Tinnitus Handicap Inventory, or THI, is a series of 25 questions that assess the impact tinnitus has on daily living. We use this inventory to determine treatment effectiveness for each patient. As shown here, this graph compares THI scores of patients who are currently undergoing our tinnitus retraining therapy program here at Blue River Hearing compared to the success of other tinnitus treatments. The green line represents a steady and progressive decline in tinnitus symptoms just after a few TRT sessions from patients that have diligently followed our protocols. The red line also shows some good progress over time. However, this group was not as diligent in following our protocols at the beginning, but after proper reinforcement and directive counseling, we see a return to a progressive pattern of declining tinnitus symptoms. A 20-point decrease in THI scores is recognized as clinically significant. Our goal is to achieve a 20-point or more decline in tinnitus symptoms before discharging the patient. Of all the tinnitus treatments available, TRT, or tinnitus retraining therapy, has shown the most significance in helping patients with their tinnitus. We'll talk about the tinnitus retraining therapy and why it's effective later.
So, maybe a little bit of history about tinnitus retraining therapy.
So this was created in the mid-1980s by the professor that actually himself taught us back last year in 2019. And David's been to this course twice now. But yeah, his name is Dr. Paul Yasterboff. So him and his wife Margaret put on this course. And Dr. Yasterboff created the neurophysiological model of tinnitus. And this demonstrates the involvement of the limbic system, which is that emotional part, and the autonomic nervous system as well. And so since 1990, he's treated over 2,000 patients.
Much more. I think that's an old published number, but many more than 2,000 for sure.
Like people will fly out to seek treatment with him and Margaret as well.
And he's actually very famous. He treats a lot of the celebrities because he's the founding neurologist who came up with the program. So when you want to get to the source, a lot of the heads of state, he's told stories to us in class where he says he's been flown on a private jet to a hangar somewhere and to treat somebody, and then fly back kind of thing, or he's been on an airline where the entire first class is only them kind of thing. So you can only imagine some of these people who are seeking these treatments. But imagine, all of us who have tinnitus and all of you guys who have tinnitus on a constant basis, if you have to run a country, or if you have a very important job, how would that affect you on the concentration or focus basis, right? Okay,
exactly.
And so one of the cases that we'll talk about a little bit later when we get to dissecting into the program is the case with Eleanor Roosevelt, right? And most of these cases, even though they're celebrities or people well known in the world that you and I should know, it's just unfortunate we can't really talk about them for their privacy. But there's many cases where the celebrity themselves would openly talk about, like William Shatner, for example. He was telling he's a patient of Dr. Yashubov, and Dr. Yashubov was successful in treating him. So apparently he was on a Star Trek. For those of you that don't know who William Shatner is, that's my generation. Back in the day when we have Star Trek. So he was Star Trek. So he was on set, and there was an explosion nearby, and when they're filming, and he actually developed tinnitus from that moment on, and he sought treatment from Dr. Yashubov, and Dr. Yashubov was able to successful treatment. He was so happy, he donated from himself a bunch of money to further the research of tinnitus retraining therapy. So there's been many good examples of him treating patients very effective, and this is the program that we practice, right? Okay.
Yeah. And really, the goal of the treatment is it's a method based around habituation. Yeah, we want to habituate our body to the perceived sound that we hear, which is the tinnitus.
So, two key components. The first one is sound therapy. So let's talk about that. The idea of sound therapy is to aim at weakening the tinnitus related to the neurological activity.
So that's that relationship between the two.
Yes. Yeah. So how we do that is maybe this example really first, right? So on your screen here, you see a candle in the dark room. So imagine your tinnitus, and a lot of people regard the tinnitus as the problem that they're currently experiencing and facing, and they can't get their mind off it. It overcomes them. They try their best to do other things during the day, but as soon as they have a moment of rest or moment of silence, they see this candle in this dark room. Okay, so sound therapy, very simply from an imagery level, is what you guys see right in front of you, is that now as we flood the room with light, the candle that is the same brightness or the same lumens is no longer the same intensity in the room, and that is sound therapy. So how do we achieve sound therapy in TRT, Lacey? Yeah.
So we a few different ways depending on the protocol in each case. So usually we set patients up with a sound speaker to use at bedtime, which is something that looks like this actually. So protocol for them, they listen to the sound therapy at bedtime, usually in times when there's not a lot of competing background noise. And then the other thing that they use are sound generators. We don't like to call it masking sound, it's more like a sound therapy. So we create a specifically made sound that they hear throughout the day. And basically we do this is so that they're hearing sound therapy no matter where they go. The reason that we have them wear these is because we don't want to carry this around on our shoulder all day. So depending again on the situation, we'll either use this or we'll use this along with the sound generators.
Yeah, in combination, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So with the sound therapy, we're able to introduce another sound, and the idea of TRT is to utilize this other sound and utilize a set of protocols to be able to retrain your brain to habituate to another sound. Yeah. So once we learn how to habituate to that sound, we're able to apply the same habituation to this sound, to this existing tinnitus, and that's how sound therapy naturally works, right? But and that's a lot of times what our patients tell us when they wear hearing aids, is that the missing portion of frequencies. And that could be very much or very little. So oftentimes I see patients who have hearing losses, and they have maybe only high frequency hearing loss, which is the most common, right? Yeah. So they have high frequency hearing loss at mild or moderate ranges, and overall, in general terms or in general definition, they can hear pretty good. And so they've been to a hearing clinic, they had a hearing test before, and maybe it was even advised that we should treat that hearing loss. But the patient goes, no, I'm not hearing well.
Yeah.
I just have this tinnitus. So if you tell me that there's no direct treatment here, then I'm not going to wear this hearing aid.
Exactly.
But that is not our advice here. So when we see a patient who has a hearing loss, you got to understand is your hair cells are limped, right? Your hair cells are not normal anymore. And what the body naturally does is it compensates. You have no choice in that matter. It will absolutely try to compensate for that loss. And in that compensation, you have heightened your sensitivity at those frequencies, and that works against what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to desensitize, so we're trying to,
Which brings us to the second part of TRT.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, maybe let's use the overprotective mother example that we often use in the directive counseling.
Yeah. So in this example, so let me paint the imagery for you guys, right? So imagine you're the boy, okay, and you have an overprotective mother, okay, who knows what's best for you, and she constantly nags at you and gives you advice on everything about your life, okay? And one day you bring home a girlfriend, and I'll put the imagery up on the screen here. So this is how your girlfriend potentially looks like, right? And at first glance, the overprotective mother looks at you, pulls you aside and say, son, she's not right for you. Okay, and she obviously has stereotyped, obviously, your girlfriend. And as much as your girlfriend is the nicest or the kindest and the best person in the world, because your overprotective mother knows best for you, she is advising you, or she's controlling or trying to control your emotions. So in this example, the tinnitus. The tinnitus is the girlfriend, okay? The overprotective mother is your subconscious mind, okay? And you are your conscious brain, okay?
And your subconscious mind, the mother-in-law, is trying to actually benefit you.
Yes, exactly. And it's always trying to do the right thing for you. It's always trying to make the right decisions for you. And in our subconscious mind, we're able to do this all the time with everything. We have applied it to everything we do. So with every actions and how we drive a car and how you turn a corner, everything is subconscious. Everything is a series of experience that you have learned and be able to reenact. And the subconscious mind takes over our emotional reactions to all these things, right? Okay, so having said that, how do you overcome? Like, how do you convince your mother? So this is how we would do it in directive counseling. So you consciously would say, mother, she's not my girlfriend. She's my tutor. The mother's like shocked. She's like, what are you talking about? You're trying to pull a fast one on me, right? I get it, okay? No. Like she's artistic looking because she is a major in art. And mom, I am failing in art, and she's my friend's friend and girlfriend, and so she's offered to tutor me and help me with my art subject. So we go on tutoring, and we're in the dining room, and we sit there and we tutor, and over time, my art subject is actually getting better, and this overprotective mother has never left her eyes glance out of her sight. She's always had her in our sight, and she's always glancing to make sure we are tutoring, and that she is indeed not my girlfriend. And over time and time again, as we continue this reinforcement, my subjects in art is getting better, I'm improving, and now the overprotective mother starts to maybe go out and get groceries and come back, and still we're just tutoring there, right? Yeah. And we continue this kind of reinforcement, if you will. And at some point in time, the overprotective mother actually doesn't even care that we're sitting there tutoring, and she's not listening in on our conversations, she's not over eavesdropping, she's not even caring anymore. And slowly and over time, this girlfriend, we now can introduce back to the overprotective mother and say, oh, you know what? She has now gotten to know the overprotective mother. The overprotective mother knows that she's kind and caring, and she's really good for you. It's a great influence, actually. In fact, you're the bad influence. The conscious mind, or me, is the bad influence. And now the girlfriend becomes accepted into the family. Yeah. and as time goes on, before you know what, the overprotective mother doesn't even notice the girlfriend in the house anymore, and the girlfriend sooner or later becomes a part of the furniture, or part of the house, part of the family, and just like another piece of furniture, if you will, in the house, and there's no longer a resistance at all, and that is how we treat tinnitus, right? So we just need to reprogram the thinking or the reactions from the subconscious mind.
Yeah, or almost desensitize it, right?
Yeah. But that is not as easy as people think. It's not a conscious decision. It's not mind over matter. It's not we want, I'm just thinking about it, and then I can do it. It's not like that. I mean, you can absolutely try, but you can't do it. And that is the key to TRT, is that not only do we utilize the sound therapy, but we utilize the component of directive counseling.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And in combination of those, we get about an 83% efficacy rate.
Yeah, and that basically just means that, there has been over 50 studies in 3 continents, okay? So let's say North America, Europe, and Australia, and they've been able to time and time again repeat this TRT process. And as long as the protocols are followed to the latest protocol, that's a key factor as well. I think when you seek out any treatment, you want the latest protocol, okay? So absolutely, I would advise that you ask, which protocol, when is this teaching of or administration of TRT, when did you take the course? Because as each year goes by, the protocols continue to be evolved, and Dr. Yashirov continues to change that. So I think it's a key component that people do look for a protocol. So we have the latest protocols from November 2019, and that's the one we administer right now, right? And I feel that it is very different even than the time I took it before, from 3 years ago, and it has evolved a whole bunch.